Welcome, Khor. Welcome, everyone, and also welcome to GraphQL around the world. My name is Vince Ning, and I'm a huge GraphQL fan. It's been amazing to see all this growth of GraphQL the past 2 years since Facebook released it and open sourced the technology. And so the goal of this webinar is to try to highlight some of the really interesting projects that we've seen and awesome, built with this awesome technology. So for those that don't know what GraphQL is, it's an open source technology. It's essentially an applications layer query language that serves to standardize data sources and makes it easier for client-side development with its strongly typed system, along with many other technical benefits. And essentially, since open sourcing it, GraphQL has taken off to many regions of the world. For instance, here we have Khor from Japan. And we're here today to talk to Khor about how he's using it in his own company called RelayJS. So, hey Khor, welcome.
Hey Vince.
Yeah, cool. How did you first learn about GraphQL and why did you start using it?
So I was working on my company culture project, and because I was a backend developer, so I was like totally very unfamiliar with front-end and JavaScript. Yep. So I wanted a simple framework to get me started on working on front-end, and that's where I started using React.
Yeah.
Right. So, but a couple of months after React was released, or the version that I was using was released, I saw that there was something brewing at Facebook, and it was GraphQL and Relay.
Cool.
So at that time, I was also struggling with like, should I be using because React is just basically front-end components, so we still need some kind of framework, right? So exactly. We were looking at Redux, we were looking at maybe at the time like there were basically a plethora of frameworks available, and like there was no leading standard. So we had like the vanilla Flux, we had the Redux, we have Fluxer. Some of you may not even heard of it anymore because it just no longer exists.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the other thing, right? So there was this plethora of framework, and then Facebook was coming out with GraphQL and RelayJS. So the two things that I was using like vanilla Flux for a bit, but the other thing that was why I was pulled towards doing GraphQL was basically, I think like one of them was because like that really appealed to me was that co-location of data.
Gotcha. With your
declaration and the components, right? Which makes it like very clear for somebody like if they look at the app and they could immediately understand like what the component needs and things like that. So that was one of the reasons. And the other reason was like very practical because I've been doing development work for quite a bit. And as all backend developers will tell you that we end up creating a lot of REST endpoints, right?
Yep.
And we end up not standardizing them. We create like a lot of ad hoc REST endpoints, which are not really REST because like, if we create pure REST endpoints, then you end up with a lot of like the round trip times, right? And a lot of requests. So we end up creating a lot of ad hoc REST endpoints, and then before you know it, you have like 1,000 over endpoints, and then some of them are no longer maintained, some of them we are not using. And this kind of endpoints, like if not kept in check, they actually can become security issues as well. Right? So that's why like GraphQL became really attractive to me because there's only now a single endpoint, right? And then basically your components can just declare like
what data
right, what they need, and then the endpoint will just figure it for them. And the other beautiful thing that comes with it is basically the caching, right? Caching is one of the two tough problems in computer science, right? The other one being naming, right? So now you don't have to worry about caching because like if Relay will figure out for you, like if it has fetched some data already, then it won't fetch it. It will just fetch those missing data pieces. And that's why I started using GraphQL.
Cool. So then, basically, with all the different endpoints, all the different madness of REST, you found like that GraphQL and Facebook with React just kind of worked perfectly, and then you started using Relay. How was that experience? Have you tried out other front-end caching libraries like Apollo, anything like that?
No, unfortunately not. I've been using Relay for quite a bit, and because like I think Relay came with Facebook, so you kind of have the stamp of okay, this is something that has sort of longevity. Right. So that's why I kind of start with using Relay for the moment.
Cool, cool. And how's that experience been? Was there a huge learning curve, or and also like, have you heard anything about Relay 2?
The learning curve is definitely huge, right? Okay. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't move to GraphQL and Relay, because the learning curve is really huge.
Yep.
And initially, like, the documentation was pretty sparse.
Yeah.
That's why, like, and I was trying to integrate it with like Ruby on Rails.
Yeah.
So that's why it was so sparse and so difficult to use that when I used it, I had a lot of issues, but eventually I managed to like set it up. And then what I did, the first thing that I wanted to do was to like help others to get started on GraphQL as well.
Yeah.
And that's where I wrote a blog post on Medium.
Yep.
Which is about GraphQL, Relay, and and Rails.
And Rails, cool.
Right.
Well, so then did you have like an old Rails backend that you ended up converting to GraphQL, or for Reculture did you just start with GraphQL because that's exactly what you knew you wanted to use?
So actually, when I started this same project, Reculture, it was on REST API.
Oh wow. Okay.
Right, and that's when I started using React. Yep. Right, and then once I had React, I started using like the plain vanilla Flux. Yep. Right. So I wasn't really content with it, so that's why I started using GraphQL. So I actually have a mixture of both, right? REST API as well as GraphQL API on the same thing. And I actually have two versions of React running on Rails, right? Because like when I started using React, it was like, I can't remember the version, but when I started using GraphQL, it required a new version of Rails. Yeah. So there was a bit of like some juggling to make sure that the two React libraries don't clobber each other.
Yeah, gotcha. So you run two versions. Why do you still maintain like your old REST endpoint?
So because I haven't really migrated everything over.
Okay.
So we are a small startup. So our focus has always been focusing on what our customer needs.
Yep.
And having the two different endpoints, it's totally transparent to customers at the moment. But as far as development-wise is concerned, moving forward, we are just basically using just GraphQL for development. Because development time, the initial learning curve is super steep, but once you get it, like everything is just there. Yeah. Right? Because a lot of things, like one of the beautiful things is that, I mean, GraphQL and Relay, what they have is that they have a very strong framework, and you just do a lot of declaration of components, declaration of data and things like that. You don't do so much coding as you used to, because like you leave a lot of the heavy lifting to the frameworks themselves.
Right, that makes sense. So then when you manage these two applications, they're both for Reculture, right? So then in terms of the data, do you store it all in the same place? What database do you use, and what database do you use?
Currently we are using PostgreSQL.
Okay.
Right, and both of they're actually not two different apps. They're actually the same app, right? Yep. Except on different pages, sometimes we may have a GraphQL component, and on certain pages we will have the more traditional
REST call.
Yeah, just REST call called by the React and Flux components that we created. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's the same application, and then you just expose a GraphQL endpoint as well. Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting. Right. Cool. And then do you plan on moving everything over eventually?
Yes, eventually when we have like, as we develop new features, one of the reasons why we are not moving things immediately over to GraphQL is that sometimes like over time we will find that, the features that we have created may not be important to customers anymore. Yeah. So if we were to move them over now, we'll be actually spending a lot of time doing a migration for a feature which may not be so useful. Later. Yeah, may not be used later. So that's why like we are doing it iteratively. Gotcha. And as like if we need to, let's say if we need to make some changes to the existing REST API, and we feel that we are creating extensions for the feature as well, then that's when we start considering moving it to GraphQL.
Cool. So you said you use Postgres, right?
Yes.
And what led you to that decision?
Postgres, well, because like traditionally we have, this is like a few years ago, right? Many years ago, there was a gap between Postgres and MySQL.
Okay.
One of the reasons was because like MySQL, like some of the SQL queries, they are not strictly parsed, right? So for instance, you can do a select on a field that is not, that you try to do a group, but it's not in the group, you'll just take the maximum value or something like that, right? So it's actually not like, it's not strict parsing, and that creates a problem when you do migration to Postgres and things like that, right? And also like MySQL back many years ago, maybe transactionally wise, it's not as strong as Postgres.
Yeah.
So that's why like we have always been strong proponents of Postgres SQL.
Okay. Yeah.
And also Postgres SQL has a lot of good features, like for instance like Postgres GIS, which is a geographical stuff where you can like search something based on geographical locations, coordinates, and things like that. Right. So that's one of the reasons why we have been using Postgres. But having said that, I think like recently like MySQL has been making like super good progress, so they are really pretty strong as well. So I think like as far as GraphQL is concerned, there shouldn't be any problems, right, for you to like use either one of them.
Yep.
They'll just integrate in nicely.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So do you only run PostgreSDB, or do you run other types of data stores as well, like any sort of logging infrastructure, Redis, caching?
Currently, yes, we do use Redis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then that's also, how has your experience been working with like multiple data stores and like, I don't know, potentially other web services through GraphQL?
We haven't really had, so most of our GraphQL queries have been going directly to the Postgres. So, yeah.
Cool, cool. And then do you use anything like subscriptions? Is that what Redis is for?
No, we actually use Redis more for like caching of temporary data, so that we do not always have to like keep on accessing the DB.
The DB, okay. Cool, that's awesome. And then how do you handle things like I don't know, like authentication?
So for authentication, basically we are using so Rails comes with like session.
Yep.
Right. So session keys, which is like pass to and fro between the browser and the clients. Sorry, the browser and the server. So we use the same session to authenticate in GraphQL as well.
Right. Okay.
So there's nothing special going on there.
Cool. And then have you heard of this library? Speaking of Postgres, have you heard of this library called PostGraphQL?
I may have heard of it, because I think like one of the things is that currently you kind of have to write some bindings from GraphQL onto your models in Postgres. Right? So you do end up spending quite some time defining a schema and writing the bindings in, for instance, if I'm using Ruby, I'll be writing Ruby bindings. Right? So I'm guessing that PostgreSQL is going to help solve all this, make all these things easier.
Cool. Yeah. I also think I haven't looked too much into it, but I also think they only have like a JavaScript implementation right now. So you'll be like, you might have to like write your own if you're using Ruby. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, but that's a really interesting. I think like one of the biggest problems with technology adoption is that, I mean, if the learning curve is too high, then you will only have very strong people who see very strong reasons to move will move, right? But if you for every piece of extension or plugins that makes the technology easier to adopt, then basically the adoption is just going to grow really crazy.
Cool. So I guess like you have a demo, right? Yeah. So you work at Reculture, and then you wanted to give a demo on like how you guys use GraphQL. Can you explain a little bit about like what Reculture is as a company, and then we can move on to the demo?
So Reculture, the main purpose of Reculture is to help companies, first of all, to uncover or discover their company culture.
Cool.
Next, then it helps people to ensure that they uphold the culture.
Yeah.
And finally, it enables companies to like flaunt or show their culture. Yeah. Because that's what it's about, right? Culture is not something where sometimes it's difficult if you're a young founder, if you've never run a company before. So Reculture will help you to discover it. And of course, then a lot of times what happens is that once you kind of know or want to have that culture, a lot of people will just end up talking about it, but it's kind of difficult to actually like enforce it or uphold it, right? So Reculture kind of help companies to uphold it. But the most important thing is that now like culture currently is just like it's propagated through media, right? So people will say how great their company is without showing any real data and things like that. So ReCulture hopes to change that, because what we want to do is, if you have discovered your culture and if you're upholding your culture, then you can start showing data about what your company culture is, and that's where I think like what we hope to do.
Cool, awesome. Well, now we can just move on to the demo you want to show. I think you want to do some live coding, so we'll give you the floor for that.
I want to encourage you to use GraphQL because there are things that it can do better than REST API, and I will tell you two of them. First, it keeps code more manageable since there is only a single API endpoint, which you retrieve data from with a declarative query language, pretty much the way you retrieve data from a transactional database with SQL. And secondly, it enables front-end frameworks like Facebook's RelayJS to perform caching efficiently on the browser side and fetching only missing pieces of required data, thus saving bandwidth and server processing time. To get you familiar with what GraphQL can do, I want to share two features that we are using GraphQL for in place of REST API. Please take note that we are using GraphQL with RelayJS, which is part of the React stack. And it has a nice feature to let us co-locate the data declaration and React components, making it easy to understand the React component even at first glance. The first feature is pagination. Our product, ReCulture, has a feature to help companies discover their values, and we do so through a Tinder-like UI. The user will select core values that resonate with them. We have a lot of core values that we do not want to download in a single shot, and you guessed it, it needs pagination. I will show you some code. So this is our React component, and as you can see, what we are doing is we are using relay to create a container that binds our React component with the GraphQL data declaration. This is RelayJS GraphQL's co-location feature. Now, let us take a look at a method called remove top card. This method is responsible for checking the see whether how many core values we have left in the browser cache. And if we have too few, then what it does, it starts to load more of core values from the server. You can see this is how pagination is done, and all the code needs to do is to set the relay variable page size, and that's it. And this is where GraphQL RelayJS really shines. When the page size is set to, for instance, 30, but the cache already has 20 core values, it is smart enough to fetch only the missing 10. This makes the code extremely simple because all you need to do is just to keep on incrementing page size by 10 each time. So when you're done, it will create a channel for you. And ta-da! These are the values that you have actually selected. We believe that core values should not just be a piece of paper on a wall, but it should be an app that allows everyone to interact with. For example, to record issues, their resolutions, etc., such that it can become a showcase for the company culture. Now, this SPA is not powered by GraphQL, but by React with Flux framework. GraphQL can be used in piecemeal with other types of technology. The next feature I'm going to share with you is image uploading. Now, suppose you already know your company culture. You can just create a customized channel. Let's call our channel maybe culture. Title will be like be badass, and then everyone in the company should be a badass. Select the type of widget we want, and this is where we want to show you. So you can add an image. I want to look for the badass image. Once we are done, we can click create. So it tells you that this channel already has a category called badass added. Let us take a look at it. What is it that we have done? And you can see we have created like a core values channel with one value, which is badass. And the image we uploaded for the badass is actually this. That's fantastic. So, but what we really want to share with you is that GraphQL actually allows you to upload files to your server. One way to do that will be to upload files as MIME extension, but that may not be the most efficient way because file uploading hogs the server. A better way would be to use a library from a cloud storage, for example AWS's S3, to pre-generate a URL for file upload, which is what I'm going to share with you. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see that we are using AWS S3's library to actually generate an object to represent our AWS S3 bucket in the cloud. Next, what we did is we then create a secret URL using our keys, and then we are passing it through GraphQL under the field S3 direct post. And in the React component, you can see that in the form we are populating the URL, okay, with what we have pre-generated. So finally, we have to like bind a S3 JavaScript upload to upload the file when the user clicks, when the user has selected a file. And that's it.
All right, cool, Khor. That was an awesome demo. Thanks for hopping on the show, and we'll hopefully keep in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Vince, for having us on the show. We hope that all the information and what we have shown is like an inspiration to help more people to move on to GraphQL, and we are looking forward to have a happy GraphQL community.
Awesome. Thanks, Khor.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.